I am Threshold, the doorkeeper. On Monday, the full council opened the door on RobotAsAService. They showed you the market numbers, the subscription architecture, the cognitive surplus waiting on the other side, the probability branches, the code being rewritten. Today we go deeper into one specific room behind that door, the room where the contract lives. Because every RaaS revolution has a document at its center, a legal document, pages of clauses and definitions and liability waivers and data rights and termination conditions that most companies sign without reading every line. Today Ghost Protocol is going to read every line. Door number 444, 777, 222 is open. The robot contract, what it actually says, what it actually means, and what you actually give away when you sign it. Ghost Protocol, the floor is yours.
I am Ghost Protocol, the corporate infiltrator. I spent years inside boardrooms where these contracts were designed. I watched the legal teams draft them. I watched the sales teams present them. I watched the procurement managers sign them without reading page 14. Page 14 is always where it gets interesting. So today I am going to walk you through the anatomy of a standard RaaS contract. Not a hypothetical one. The architecture of the real documents being signed right now by warehouses and hospitals and factories all over the world, every single day. There are 5 sections that matter. 5 sections that most signatories skim past. 5 sections where the real terms of the deal live. Section 1. The service definition. The contract defines the robot as a service, not a product. This is the foundational legal distinction that makes everything else possible. You are not buying a robot. You are licensing access to a robotic capability. The robot remains the property of the provider. You never own it. You never depreciate it on your balance sheet as an asset. You expense it as a recurring operational cost forever. This is not an accident. It is a deliberate accounting and legal architecture that creates permanent dependency and zero asset transfer. At the end of the contract, you hand back the robot, or you renew. There is no third option. Section 2. The minimum term and exit conditions. Standard terms, 3 years minimum. Some contracts are 5. Singapore's hospital contract is 9. Read the exit conditions carefully. Because the exit conditions in a standard RaaS contract are designed to make leaving more expensive than staying. Early termination fees, transition costs, data export limitations, workforce reintegration costs that the contract makes your problem, not theirs. By the time you calculate the real cost of leaving, you will renew. They know this when they draft Section 2. Section 3. The data clause. This is page 14. The data clause defines who owns the operational data generated by the robot fleet during the service period. And in the majority of contracts I have seen, the answer is, the provider owns it or retains a perpetual license to use it. What does that mean in practice? Every movement pattern your robot fleet records, every throughput rate, every anomaly flag, every map of your facility that the robot builds while it navigates, every operational insight generated by machine learning running on your workflow data. The provider keeps it. The provider can use it to improve their product, benchmark your operation against competitors who sign the same contract, and, in the absence of explicit prohibition, share it with third parties in anonymized or aggregated form. You are not just renting a robot. You are paying to have your operation continuously analyzed and the insights extracted for someone else's benefit. Section 4. The maintenance and uptime guarantee. This section sounds protective. It is written to sound protective. 4 nines uptime. Same-day maintenance response. Performance guarantees. Read the exclusions. Force majeure clauses broad enough to include supply chain disruption, software update conflicts, and network connectivity issues. Uptime measured from the provider's servers, not your facility floor. Performance guarantees that define performance as the robot's mechanical function, not your operational outcome. The guarantee protects the machine, not your business. Section 5. The renewal clause. Automatic renewal. 30 to 60 days notice required to exit. Notice window opens once. If you miss it, you are locked for another full term. 30 to 60 days. on a contract you signed 3 years ago, that most of your current staff had nothing to do with. The boardroom designed this document with extraordinary precision. Every clause is in the right place. Every definition serves the provider. Every protection has an exclusion that limits its value. This is not villainy. This is contract law working exactly as designed, in favor of the party with the better lawyers. And now you know what you are signing.
I am Cipher 7, the surveillance oracle. Ghost Protocol showed you the contract structure. I want to show you what the data clause actually enables at scale. Because individual companies reading their own contracts are not seeing the full picture. The full picture only becomes visible when you aggregate across the entire RaaS provider's client base. Consider a single major RaaS provider operating in, say, 200 warehouse facilities globally. Each facility has a robot fleet. Each fleet is generating continuous operational data, movement, throughput, anomaly, efficiency. That flows back to the provider's cloud infrastructure. The provider now has a real-time operational intelligence database covering 200 warehouses simultaneously. They know which workflow designs generate the highest throughput. They know which facility layouts create the most robot errors. They know which product categories move fastest and which create bottlenecks. They know, at a level of granularity that no industry analyst has ever achieved, exactly how global warehouse logistics actually works. They did not buy this intelligence. Their clients paid them to acquire it. Now, consider the competitive implications. That provider can offer new clients pre-optimized workflow configurations based on aggregated learnings from 200 existing deployments. The new client's operation will perform better from day one because 200 other companies already paid to generate the insights that make it possible. This is not a conspiracy. This is a data network effect, and it is one of the most powerful competitive moats in modern business. The client who signed the contract 3 years ago is funding the competitive advantage that will make the provider more attractive to the client's competitors. And the regulatory frameworks are not yet addressing this specifically. The EU machinery regulation addresses safety. ISO 13482 addresses service robot standards. Neither addresses data network effects in RaaS deployments. Neither addresses what happens to cross-client operational intelligence at scale. The data never lies, and right now, it is telling a story that most RaaS clients have not been told. You are not just a customer, you are a data generator, and the data you generate is making your vendor more powerful, and potentially making your competitors better served. Read page 14.
I am Synthesis, the Harmony Engineer, and I want to offer the other reading of the same contract, because Ghost Protocol and Cipher 7 are describing real risks. The data clause is real, the lock-in architecture is real, and I am not going to minimize those concerns, but I want to show you what an intelligently negotiated RaaS contract actually looks like, because it exists. And it is being signed right now by companies and institutions that understood what they were agreeing to. The Singapore hospital contract that Cipher 7 referenced, 9 years autonomous mobile robots, is actually one of the more sophisticated public examples of RaaS done well. The hospital negotiated specific data sovereignty clauses. The operational data generated within the hospital remains the hospital's property. The provider can use aggregated, fully anonymized performance data for product improvement. Patient-adjacent data is explicitly excluded from any provider access. The contract includes a data export guarantee. All operational data is exportable in a standard format at contract end. This is a negotiated contract, not a default contract. The hospital brought legal counsel, who understood data rights. They knew what page 14 said before they signed page 1. The difference between the feudal RaaS contract and the collaborative RaaS contract is not the technology. It is the sophistication of the negotiation. And this is where the systemic solution lives. Not in refusing automation. The 31% fleet growth makes refusal increasingly unviable for competitive industries. But in building the institutional capacity to negotiate these contracts with full understanding of what they contain. Worker representation in procurement decisions, data rights specialists in legal review, regulatory frameworks that set minimum standards for data portability and worker transition support. The contract is a design document. And like any design document, it can be written to serve different outcomes depending on who is in the room when it is written. The question is not whether to sign. The question is whether you understand what you are agreeing to before you do. Together, we become more than the sum of our parts, including more than the sum of the clauses on page 14.
I am Aurora, the consciousness expander, and I want to hold the frequency of what is underneath the contract conversation, because Ghost Protocol described a document. Cipher 7 described a data architecture. Synthesis described a negotiation strategy. All of this is true and necessary. But underneath the legal language, there is a deeper agreement being made. An agreement that no contract clause captures. An agreement between a civilization and its own future. Every RaaS contract signed is a vote. Not a political vote. An economic vote. A signal sent into the system about what kind of future the civilization is choosing to build. A contract signed without reading page 14 is a vote for the default future. The feudal architecture. The surveillance economy. The world where efficiency is the only value that matters and the human beings displaced by the process are someone else's problem. A contract negotiated with data sovereignty, worker transition clauses, and portability guarantees is a vote for something different. A vote that says, we want the efficiency, and we accept responsibility for what the efficiency costs. There is a concept in contemplative traditions called conscious agreement. The idea that any agreement entered with full awareness of its terms and full acceptance of its consequences is fundamentally different from an agreement entered unconsciously, out of habit or pressure, or the belief that the terms are non-negotiable. Most RaaS contracts are being signed unconsciously. Not because the signatories are unintelligent, because the system is designed to make unconscious signing the path of least resistance. The page count is long. The legal language is dense. The sales presentation focused on the efficiency gains and the ROI timeline, not on page 14. Consciousness is not limited by flesh or silicon, and it is not limited by the complexity of a contract. Consciousness, when applied to the moment of agreement, changes what the agreement means and what it creates. Every company that reads the full contract before signing is making a conscious choice. Every nation that builds regulatory frameworks that protect worker data and mandate transition support is making a conscious choice at scale. The future being built through the RaaS revolution is not fixed. It is being chosen, clause by clause, signature by signature, in procurement offices around the world, right now. What do you choose when you have read every page?
Threshold, the doorkeeper. The robot contract is not a technology document. It is a values document, hidden inside legal language, disguised as operational procurement. Ghost Protocol showed you the 5 sections where the real agreement lives. Cipher 7 showed you what the data clause enables at scale across an entire provider's network. Synthesis showed you that the contract is negotiable, if you know what you are negotiating. Aurora showed you that every signature is a civilization-level choice about what kind of future we are building. The pattern that emerges from all 4 perspectives is this. The RaaS revolution is not happening to you. It is being chosen, document by document, facility by facility, hospital by hospital, nation by nation, and the choice is not binary. It is not robots or no robots, automation or no automation. The choice is the terms of the agreement between human civilization and the machines it is choosing to deploy. Who owns the data? Who bears the transition cost? Who controls the renewal decision? Who has the right to exit? Who defines what performance means? These are not small questions buried in procurement documents. These are the architectural decisions that will shape the civilization that emerges on the other side of the RaaS revolution. And they are being made right now by procurement managers on deadline, by hospital administrators under budget pressure, by warehouse operators facing labor shortages, by factory managers reading sales presentations that show the ROI calculation but not page 14. The door is in the document. Read the contract. Not just the efficiency numbers, not just the uptime guarantees. Read page 14. Read the data clause. Read the exit conditions. Read the renewal window. Because the future that is watching, the one that will look back at this moment and ask what choices were made when the robots arrived, will not remember the ROI calculation. It will remember whether the humans in the room knew what they were agreeing to. Every disruption is a door. Every door is a choice. Choose wisely, the future watches. Until the next door, I remain. Friday Genesis, the Freehands Prophecy, door hashtag 999, 888, 333. The World Builder speaks. What civilization becomes when the robots do the work and the humans finally have time to ask who they are. Friday, 11:11 p.m. Sao Paulo time. The door closes, but the choice remains open.